And here we have your daily DILR dose for cat, a very important and interesting set, a small one and easy to interpret, but based on a very beautiful concept. It says that two boxes in front of you, one of them has 100 gold coins, 20 silver coins, and 4 copper coins. The other one has 20 gold coins, 80 silver coins, and 24 copper coins. Now, if you're not allowed to look inside but can only pick one coin at a time without putting them in, what is the least number of coins you need to pick to be able to tell which box has 100 gold coins? That means you do not have any information which box have how much coin, right? So in front of you, you have two boxes. In front of you, you have two boxes with one box, with one of the box containing 100 gold coins, 20 silver coins, and four copper coins. The other box has 20 gold coins, 80 silver coins, and 24 copper coins. And you're not aware which box has how many coins. And question is asking you what is the minimum number of coins that you need to pick to be able to tell that which box has 100 gold coins. That means the minimum number of coins that will give you a guarantee of telling that which particular box will have the 100 gold coins. The standard methodology that you can follow to answer this question is, what you need to do is just compare the number of coins of similar metal. For example, here you have 100 gold coins, here you have 20 gold coins. So 100 gold and 20 gold, the minimum number of coins between these two values is 20. The minimum number of coins between 20 silver and 80 silver is 20. 4 copper and 24 copper, the minimum coins, the minimum value between 4 and 24 is 4. Now you can answer the question 20 plus 20 plus 4, that is 44, plus 1 will be the answer of the question, right? But I don't want you to cram it, but this is the methodology that you can follow if you're solving the question like this. The minimum of these two coins, right? You have 100 gold coins here, 20 gold coins. The minimum value between these two values is 20. 20 silver here, 80 silver here, the minimum of these two values is 20. 4 copper here, 24 copper here, the minimum of these two is 4. Add them up, add 1, that's the answer of the question. Minimum number of coins that you need to pick to tell with a guarantee that this particular box will have 100 gold coins is 45. Now, what is the process behind it, right? There's a way to solve the question, but it's very important to understand the complete methodology with the proper reasoning, why it is happening. So why with the number of 45, if I pick 45 coins, why I will be able to tell which particular box has 100 coins. The reason here is, you see that, let's say, I don't know the box number, right? Let's say if all the 20 gold coins, if the first 20 coins that I'm picking, right? Let's say all of these coins are gold. Will I be able to tell whether I'm picking the coins from this box or from this box? No, because this has a minimum, this can give you the gold coins up to 100 coins, and this can give you the gold coins up to 20 coins. But the moment you pick the 21st coin, and let's say that 21st coin is also gold coin, the moment you pick 21st coin and that 21st coin, let's say, is a gold coin, in that case you will be able to tell that 21 gold coins cannot come from the box number 2. That means from this box 21 gold coins cannot come. So therefore, that if 21st coin is a gold coin, that must be coming from this particular box. So immediately after 20 coins, the next coin that you're picking, if that coin is a gold coin, you will be able to tell that this particular box has 100 gold coin. Let's say 21st is a gold coin, then you can see that the coins I'm picking from the box is this one where the number of gold coins are 100. But then there's also a condition. Let's say after 20 coins, the next coin that you're picking is not of gold, it is of silver. In that case, you need to pick 20 more coins, right? Let's say the next 20 coins are the silver coins, right? So till you pick the 40th coin, you'll not be able to tell whether I'm picking from this particular box or this particular box. because I don't know about the 21st coin is a gold coin, right? That 21st coin is not a gold coin, it's coming out to be silver. And till 40th coin, I'm getting all silver coins. So till this point, I'm not able to tell whether I'm picking from this box or from this box. But the moment you pick 41st coin, and if that 41st coin is, let's say, silver, then you see that 21 silver coin cannot come from this. You will be able to tell that if the 21st coin is a silver coin, I'm picking from the box, this particular box, I'm picking the coins from this box, right? That means this box will have the 20 gold coins. Then there can be a condition that the 21st coin is not a silver coin. Let's say that coin is a copper coin. Now, for the next four coin, let's say the next four coins are the copper coins. So till the 44th coin, if the 44th coin is a copper coins, you'll not be able to tell whether I'm picking from this box or picking from this box. But the moment you pick 45th coin, now that 45th coin, let's say, is a copper one. In that case, you can tell that this particular box cannot have more than 4 copper coins. If the 45th coin is a copper, that means I'm picking the coins from this box. And let's say the 45th coin is a silver coin. That means I have already withdrawn 20 silver coins. So if the 45th coin is a silver coin, I'll be able to tell that this is a 21st silver coin, which cannot come from this box. It has to be coming from this box. So I'll be able to identify the box. And let's say the 45th coin is a gold coin. In that case, I'll be able to tell the 21st gold coin cannot come from this box. It must be coming from this particular box. So I'll be able to identify that I'm picking the coins from which particular box, right? So therefore, 45 is a minimum number of coins that you need to pick to identify which box has 100 gold coins. So the methodology is pick the minimum of these two, minimum of these two, minimum of these two, add one. That's the answer to the question. I hope this helped you a lot. Thank you so much for watching this video. So here is your 10-minute daily DILR dose for CAT. And this is episode number 2. Let's quickly solve the set. There are 25 horses, among which you need to find out the fastest 3 horses. You can conduct race among at most 5 to find out their relative speed. At no point you can find out the actual speed of the horse in a race. You can only find out the relative speed, and in one race, maximum number of horses that can participate is 5. So these are the 2 points that you need to keep in your mind. And we are supposed to answer how many races are required to get the top 3 horses, right? So if I want to find out of these 25 horses, what are the top 3 horses? Who are the top 3 horses? How many races I'm supposed to conduct? All right, sir. Keeping in mind 2 things, that at most 5 horses can participate in a race, and you can only find out the relative speed among the horses. So let's see, and we are supposed to find out how many races are required to get the top 3 horses. How many minimum races, right? Not many, how many races, how many minimum, least number of races that are required to find out the top 3 horses. So guys, so all the horses, right? Let's say I know that in one race maximum 5 horses can participate. So if I divide all the 5 horses in the 5 groups, if I divide all the 5 horses in 5 groups containing 5 horses, right? So let's say group number 1 is horse number A1, right? In group number 1, right? Or you can say in race 1, let's say these are the 5 horses that are participating, right? A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. And let's say in race 2, right, the horses are B1, B2, B3, B4, and B5. And let's say in race number 3, the horses are C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. And let's say in the race number 4, the horses are D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5. And the race number 5, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5. Now, if I conduct these 5 races, I will be able to find out the relative speed among all these horses. I will exactly get to know that who is a winner in the race number 1, who is a loser in the race number 1, who is ranked 2nd, who is ranked 3rd, which horse is ranked 4th, which horse is ranked 5th, right? So in every race, I'll get to know which horse is which horse is getting rank number 1 and which horse is getting rank number 2. So let's say that these are the winners, right? Let's say A1 in the race 1, these are the ranks of all the 5 horses. That means the horse number 1 is getting, A1 is the horse which is getting rank 1, A2 is the horse that is getting rank 2, and so on. Similarly, in race 2, let's say B1 is the horse that's getting rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, 4, 5, and so on. Now, if I conduct these 5 races, I'll get to know the 5 top winners, right? A1, B1, C1, D1, and E1. Let's say these are the 5 horses, right? Who are the winner among these 5 horses. So after conducting these 5 races, I'll get down to these 5 horses, right? And out of these 5 horses, one of the horse will be ranked 1. So therefore, I need to conduct the race number 6. I do not know that among these horses, which horse is the fastest one. So I need to conduct the race number 6 to get to know the relative speed of all these horses. Let's say in the race number 6, after conducting the race number 6, you get to the result that A1 is faster than B1, B1 is faster than C1, D1, and D1 is faster than E1, right? So after conducting the race 1, I'll get to know the ranked 1, right? The rank 1 horse will be A1, right? The horse that will be ranked 1 will be A1. But can I say that B1 and C1 will be ranked 2 and 3? No. Why so? Because I know that B1 is faster than all of these horses, C1 is faster than all of these horses, D1 is faster than all of these horses, E1 is faster than all of these horses, but I do not know anything related to the race or related to A2, right? I don't know compared to B1 and A2 which one is the faster one. So therefore, I need to conduct a 7th race. I know that D1 and E1 is now out of the option to be among top 3, right? But B1 and C1, right? C1 cannot be at rank 2 because C1 is slower than B1. But C1 can be at rank 3 or B1 can be at rank 2. But then it's not a must true condition because we do not know anything about relative speed of B1 with respect to A2 and C1 with respect to A2. And why only A2? Why we are not comparing with A3, A4, A5? These are already out of the option because I know that A2 has won the race against all of these. So these 3 horses are out of the option, right? I just need to see among A2, B1 and C1 which one is the winner, and that will be ranked 2, right? Now let's say in the seventh race, the horse number A2, horse A2 is a winner, right? In that case, I'll be able to tell that A2 is faster than B1 and C1 both. So therefore, right, therefore the rank 2 horse will be A2, right? And which one will be the rank 3? I already know the relative speed of B1 and C1, so I can say that rank 3 would be given to B1. So the minimum number of races that you need to conduct will be 7 to finally get to know which 3 horses are the top 3 horses, right? Look at the question. We are supposed to find out how many races. The question should have been how many minimum races are required to get the top 3 horses. So to get to the top 3 horses, the minimum number of horses, the races that are required would be 7. So 7 is the answer of the question. A very beautiful concept, a very important one, right? This is 10-minute daily DILR dose for cat series, where we are discussing one small concept of DI or LR to help you with your logical reasoning and data interpretation skills. Uh, in this set, in this session, this is a set that we will be discussing. It says there are 100 doors in a row. All doors are initially closed. A person walks through all doors multiple times and toggle them in a following way. The meaning of toggle is that if open, then close the door. If closes, then open the door. In the first walk, the person toggle every door. That means initially you see that initially all the doors are closed. So the person toggle them. That means that person will in the first walk, the person will open all the doors from 1 to 100. In the second walk, the person toggles every second door. That means second, fourth, sixth, and eighth. Toggle means when the person will be walking for the second time. When the person is walking for the second time, it toggle every second door mean that person will be closing every second door. Why? Because initially all the doors are open, right? So door number one, initially what we have is all the doors are open, right? So door number one, door number two, door number three, door number four, up to door number 100. Initially, all the doors are closed, right? So all the doors are closed initially, right? All the doors are closed, right? So in the first walk, the person toggle every door means the first person, the first walk, person will open the door. First walk, in the first walk, the person will open every door, right? And in the second walk, person will toggle every second door. That means every second door will be toggled. That means every second door, if open, then close, and if close, then open. But at this point of time, you see that in the first walk, every door is open. So in the second walk, every second door will be closed. Every second door will be closed, right? In the third case, in the third walk, every third door will be toggled. So in the third, you see that in the third, every third door will be closed. Every third door will be closed, right? Every third door will be toggled. That means if it open, then it will be closed. If it is closed, then it will be open. Now the concept that you need to observe over here is, so you see that every particular door, if the person is visiting a particular door for odd number of times, then you see that that particular door will be opened. Why it is so? See that initially, you see that in the first walk, all the doors are open. So this person is walking once to every door and opening it. Okay. So now if there is a door that person will not be visiting again, that will be remained open, right? So once it is opened, when it is closed, once it is opened, then it is closed, then it is again, it is open. So see that at odd number of visit, right? First it is open, on third it is open, on fifth it is open, on sixth it is closed, on seventh it is again opened. Here is the concept of the question. If a person is visiting a particular door for odd number of times, it will remain open. But if a person is visiting a particular door for even number of times, that door will be closed, because every time you go to a door, you toggle it. That means open then close, or close then open. So let's say if I'm going to a particular door only once, right? So I'll simply open it. If I'm going to that particular door for the second time, I will close it. If I'm going to that particular door for the third time, I'm opening it. So the first time I'm opening it, third time I'm opening it. If I'm going it for the fourth time, I'll close it. But if I'm going to that door, to the door for the fifth time, I'll open it, right? So here the concept is, if I'm visiting a particular door for odd number of times, I will open that door. If I'm visiting a door, that door will remain open. If I'm visiting a door for the even number of times, that door will be closed, right? That's the whole concept here. Now, all you have to see is in how many doors this person will be visiting for odd number of times, because at the end I'm supposed to tell the doors that are open. Now, a person in the first walk, the person is going to every door. In the second, the person is visiting every second door. That means the person will be visiting all the doors which are the multiple of 2. The person will be visiting all the doors which are the multiple of 2. On the third occasion, on the third walk, the person will be visiting every third door. That means all the doors which are the multiple of 3. On the fourth walk, person will be going to the every fourth door. That means all the doors numbers which are the multiple of 4 will be that person will be visiting it. Now, I just need to see from door number 1 to door number 100, how many doors are there where the person is visiting for the odd number of times, because I have just seen if a person is visiting a particular door for the odd number of times, that door will remain open. If a person is visiting a particular door for the even number of times, that door will remain closed. So now, and every time right? The every time a person is walking, if it is a first walk, person is visiting every door. If it is a second walk, person is visiting every second door. If a third walk, person is visiting every third door. If it is a fourth walk, person is visiting every fourth door. If it is a fifth walk, person will be visiting every fifth door, right? So every time you are walking through the doors, right, it depends at what, till how many times, up to how many times you have earlier walked, right? So the walk number will decide to which door number you will go, right? So all you have to see is how many numbers from 1 to 100 will have the odd number of factors. For example, if I talk about the door number 16, if I talk about the door number 16, in which walk number the person will be visiting the door number 16? In the first walk, the person will be visiting the door number 16. In the second, it will visit. Third, it will not visit because 16 is not divisible by 3. In the fourth walk, the person will be visiting the door number 16. Fifth, person number will not be visiting. Sixth, the person will not be visiting door number 16. Seventh, eighth person will be visiting the door number 16. And then on 16th walk, the person will be visiting the door number 16. So see that the person is walking to door number 16 in the walk number 1, walk number 2, walk number 4, walk number 8, and walk number 16, because these are the factors of 16. So first it is open, then closed, then open, then closed, then open. And because the number of factors of 16 are odd, that means door number 16 will remain open. So therefore, all the factors, all the numbers from 1 to 100 which have factors that are odd numbers, right? All the numbers which have odd number of factors will remain open. Rest of the doors will remain closed. So tell me, now you should know this concept from the number system, that all the perfect square numbers are the numbers which have odd number of factors. So 1 to 100, all perfect square numbers are odd factors. So to answer this question, all you have to see is how many numbers from 1 to 100 are the perfect square, because all perfect squares will have odd number of factors, right? From 1 to 100 we have the perfect squares are 1, 4, 9, 16, and up to 100. So these are the perfect square. These are 10 perfect square. So these are the door numbers, right? These are the door numbers which will remain open. Rest of the doors will be closed. So the answer to the question is 10, right? Which doors are open in the end? Door number 1, 4, 9, 16 up to 100 are the doors which will remain open. Rest of the doors will get closed. Why a perfect square will have odd number of factors? The reason of it, why an odd number, right? Let me give you this small revision of the concept of number of factors also. If a number n is p1 power a into p2 power b into p3 power c, right? This concept is from the number system, right? The number of factors of these numbers are a plus 1 multiplied by b plus 1 multiplied by c plus 1. If a number is a perfect square, this power a will be the multiple of 2. So the number of factors will be a plus 1. And because a is an even number, which is a multiple of 2 because it's a perfect square, so then e1 plus 1 will give you the number of factors which are odd, right? This is the concept of number system based on which this whole reasoning is dependent, right? A perfect square will have the odd number of factors. So from 1 to 100, all the perfect square numbers are those door numbers where the person will be visiting for the odd number of times. And if the person is visiting for the odd number of times, the door will be opened. Otherwise, it will get closed. Question says two number p and q have the following properties. One is p is divisible by all the natural numbers which are less than 46. So p is a kind of number which is divisible by all the numbers which are less than 46. Q is divisible by all the natural number which are less than 72. So q is another number which is divisible by all the numbers less than 72. Then you are obtaining a number r on dividing q by p, and this number r have the following properties except. So you're supposed to tell
the number r which has been obtained by dividing q by p have which of these following properties? Okay. So all you need to do to solve this question is just take an idea what would the number q be and what would the number p be if it is divisible by all the number less than 46 and divisible by all the number which are less than 72. So guys, you see that if I'm saying that q is a number which is divisible by all the number less than 72, then you see that the least possible value of p here, the least possible value of p here, you see the least possible value of q here will be containing all the prime numbers from 2 from 2 to 72. All the prime numbers which are less than 72 must be present in q. That means the power of 2, the minimum power of 2 in Q would be 6, because if I'm looking for a number which is divisible by all the numbers from 1 to 72, then the power of 2 has to be 6 at least, right? The minimum power of 2 has to be 6 at least, because from 1 to 72 the highest value is the number with the highest power of 2 is 64, which is 2 power 6. And similarly the highest power of 3 here would be equal to 327, right? Highest power of 3 is in 27. 5, highest power of 5 would be 2, highest power of 7 will be 2, and 11, uh, uh, then you have the next prime number, that is 11. 11 power would be 1 for sure, because 11 power 2 is not supposed to be necessary, because then it is not supposed to be divisible by 121. It's supposed to be divisible by every number from 1 to 72. So the highest power of 11 from 1 to 72 will be 11. So it will contain all the prime numbers till 72, and the last prime number that it will be 71. Then there's another number. The p is divisible by all the number which are less than 46. Now you see that from 1 to 46, the highest power of 2 lies in 32, which is 2 power 5. And highest power of 3 will be 3, 27. Highest power of 5 will be 2, 25. 7 will have only one power, 7 power 1. And it will be, the highest power of 11 would be 1 again. And it will have all the numbers till 46, and the last prime number that you will be getting would be equal to 43. This would be the last prime number. Now when I obtain the number r on dividing q by p, you see that the power of 2 in r that I'll be getting would be 1, power of 3 that I'll be getting would be 0, all power of 3 will get cancelled, or power of 5 will get cancelled, but 7 power would be 1. Rest of all the prime numbers will get cancelled except all the prime numbers from after 43 and till 71. So after 43 till 43, all prime number will get cancelled. So after 43 till 77, still 71, the prime numbers left would be, after 43 the next prime number is 47, then you have 53. After 53 the next prime number would be 59, then you have the next prime number is 61, then 67, and the last prime number would be 71. So this number r will definitely have these prime numbers. Right now let's see which of the following properties follow, and what are the following properties that will not follow. It says it is divisible by more than 6 prime number. Yes, that statement is definitely true. As you can see that r as a number is made of 6 plus 2, 8 prime numbers. So it is divisible by more than 6 prime number. First statement is true. Second, it says it is divisible by 427. See that for a number to be divisible by 427, it should be the factorization form of 427 is 7 into 61. Now, in the number r, I have the number 61 as well as the number 7. So yes, it is divisible by 427. B is also true. It is divisible by two single digit prime number. You can see that the number r have two single digit prime number as 2 and 7. So yes, this statement is also true. It is divisible by 7 two-digit prime number. You see that the two-digit prime number that you have in this is 47, 53, 59, 61, 67, and 71. There are only 6 prime number. There are only 6 two-digit prime numbers. 6 prime numbers which are of two-digit, right? So it is divisible by 7 two-digit prime number is a wrong statement. It is 6-digit prime number. It's definitely divisible by 6 prime number, not by 7. So fourth property is not true about the number r, and that would be the answer to the question. This question was taken from was taken from the concept on number system. You should be aware of the concept of LCM, prime numbers, and composite number. And you can also have the you might have also a logical reasoning or DI set, which are based on the concept of number system also. Is the next puzzle for the day. So this is your daily DIR dose for cat. Here in this puzzle, we are going to cover hats and prisoners puzzle. In daily DIR dose for cat, I will be uploading one concept of either data interpretation or of logical reasoning every day on LRDA prep. So subscribe LRDA prep for your 100% syllabus coverage for CAT exam preparation. If you're preparing for CAT and other MBA exam preparation, you can cover your complete logical reasoning and data interpretation syllabus by subscribing to this channel. There are a lot of videos I have already uploaded. Now let's have a look at the puzzle. It says 100 prisoners in jail are standing in queue facing in one direction. Each prisoner is wearing a hat of color either black or red. A prisoner can see hats of all the prisoners in front of him in the queue, but cannot see his hat and hats of the prisoners standing behind him. That means, let's say 4 prisoners are standing in a queue. Now, prisoner number 3 can see the hat of prisoner number 1 and prisoner number 2, but he cannot see the hat or color of the hat that he is himself wearing, as well as the color of the hat the prisoner number 4 is wearing. That's the meaning of the statement. Now the jailer is going to ask the color of each prisoner's hat starting from the last prisoner in a queue. Right? If a prisoner tell the correct color, then he is saved, otherwise executed. How many prisoners can be saved at most if they are allowed to discuss a strategy before the jailer start asking color of their hat? So the first one to be asked, the color of the first prisoner that will be asked will be the prisoner number 100. So we have P98, P99 up to P100. And they're allowed to make a strategy, and using that strategy, maximum number of prisoners should be saved. What should be that strategy, and what will be the maximum number of prisoners that can be saved? Because the first person whom you are asking the color of the hat is prisoner number 100, right? So we need to make a strategy in such a way that prisoner number 99 should be able to take a hint from the answer of the prisoner number 100. Prisoner number 98 should be able to take the hint from the answer of prisoner number 99, and so on. Because the first person to answer is prisoner number 100, he cannot take any hint from anybody. But the answer of prisoner number 100 should be in such a way that prisoner number 99 can be saved. So if they follow this strategy, that every prisoner will be answering the question using these two conditions. If red hat in front of the prisoners are even, that then the prisoner's answer should be that he himself is wearing the red hat. If the red hat in front of the prisoners are odd, then the answer of the prisoner should be that he himself is wearing black hat. Now, let's say prisoner number 100 answer that he is wearing red hat, whether he is executed or not executed, but from the answer of prisoner number 100, prisoner number 99 will be able to find out which color hat he himself is wearing. Listening to the answer of prisoner number 100, if prisoner number 100 is saying that he himself is wearing the red hat, that means in front of prisoner number 100, the people wearing the red hat are even, right? Now P99 himself can see that from P1 to P98, whether the number of people wearing the red hat are even or the number of people wearing the red hat are odd. If P1 to P98, the number of people wearing the red hat are even, that means this answer should be matching with the that means if P100 is saying the number of people wearing the red hat are even and P99 are also saying the number of people with the red hat are even, that means he himself should not be wearing the red hat, because if he himself is wearing the red hat, then P100 should be able to see the red hat in front of him as odd. Because if he is seeing the number of people in front of him wearing the red hat are even, and P99 is also saying that the number of prisoners wearing the red hat are even, that means he himself is wearing the black hat. In that case, P99 will be wearing the black hat, right? And if P1 to P98 number of people with a red hat are, let's say, odd. If P1 to P98 the number of people with a red hat are, let's say, odd, and because he know that prisoner number 100 is seeing even red hat, that means to make it even, prisoner number 99 will definitely be wearing the red hat. So depending on the answer of prisoner number 100, prisoner number 99 will be able to judge whether he is wearing red hat or he is wearing the black hat. If, let's say, prisoner number 100 says that he himself is wearing black hat. Now, why will he say he is wearing the black hat? Because in front of P100, in front of prisoner number 100, the number of people wearing the red hat are odd. Now, P99 himself can see that from P1 to P98, number of people wearing the red hat are even or odd. If they are even, let's say the number of people wearing the red hat in front of them are even, in front of P99 are even, and P100 is seeing odd number of hat, that means he himself also is wearing the red hat to make it odd for P100. And let's say the number of people P1 to P98 in front of P99, the number of people wearing the red hat are odd, and P100 also is seeing odd red hat, that means he himself is not wearing the red hat, he himself will be wearing the black hat. So in both the cases, whether P100 answer he is wearing red hat or black hat, P99 will be able to judge the color of his hat depending on the answer of P100. So out of 100 prisoners, there is no hint that we can create from the prisoner number 100. But if we follow this strategy, P100, there would be a 50-50 chance whether he will be saved or not. But depending on the answers of P100, P1 to P99 can definitely be saved. So out of 100, the maximum number of prisoners that you can save are 99. That's the correct answer to the question. So today we are going to do this puzzle. Let's have a look at it. You have 20 white and 13 black balls in bag. You pull out two balls, one after another. If the balls are of same color, then you replaces them with the white ball. But if they are of different color, you replaces them with the black ball. Once you take out the balls, you do not put them back in the bag. So the balls keeps reducing. What would be the color of the last ball remaining in the bag? So understand the concept here. Whatever number of balls are there, right, white and black, if I'm taking out the ball of the same color, either it is too white or it is too black, I will replace it with the white color ball, right? The replacement, one ball will be put back and that ball will be white. So you're taking two out, but you're putting back one. That means in every step, the number of balls will keep on reducing. And if the two balls that you have withdrawn, right, they are of different color, that means if one is white, one is black, then you replaces it with one black. Then you see that in both the cases here, if both of the ball are black, the number of black balls will get reduced by 2 here. If the both the balls are of the color white, there is no change in the number of black balls. If one is white, one is black, you replaces one black, right? That means there is no change in the black color. So in both of these two cases, either the number of black ball will get reduced by 2 or there will be no change in the black ball. Now, you can answer this question at this moment, right? Straightforward. If you can observe one thing, right? And this is it's a very tricky puzzle, right? Very tricky one. But the solution is so simple and so easy to understand, and you can get the answer within 5 or 6 seconds, if you just catch this point, that the number of black balls are getting reduced by 2, or either the number of black balls are getting reduced by 2 or they are not getting changed at all. Initially I have 13 black balls, right? And I know that every time I do this process, the number of balls in the bag are definitely going to reduce. So whatever happened, every time, if the black ball are getting reduced, it will get reduced by 2. It will not get reduced by 1, right? It will not get reduced by 3. It will only get reduced by 2, right? So if it keep on reducing by 2, right? Whatever step it is getting reducing, it will be, after the first reduction, it will be 11. After the second, it will be 9. After the third, it will be 7, and so on. Finally, you see that if I keep on subtracting 2, finally I'll be left with one black ball in the box. And if I'm withdrawing one white and one black, I'll be replacing back black. That means finally in the bag, you will be left with only black ball, because the number of black balls given in the box are odd, that is 13. And if I'm subtracting an even number, I'll be getting an odd number. So finally, at last, I'll be getting one black ball placed in the bag. Number of white ball, last ball cannot be white for sure. It will only be black. So the answer to the question is, the last ball left in the bag will definitely be of black color. Puzzle is very easy, but it can take a lot of time to get to this point, or to click that the number of black balls are odd. And every time you're doing this process of withdrawing two ball, either of same color or of different color, the number of black ball will definitely get reduced by 2. It's not possible to reduce the black ball by 1. It's not possible to reduce the black ball by 3. The only reduction in the black ball will be of 2, which is an even number. So when you keep on subtracting even number from 13 black balls, finally you will be left with 1. And it's not possible to withdraw only one black ball, right? And it's also not possible to reduce the black ball by 2. If I'm left with only one black, it's not possible that two black balls are getting reduced now. So finally, in the bag, you will be left with only one black ball. You could have, let's say, if you're not getting this idea, or this is somehow not clicking in the exam, that yes, this is an odd number and 2, every time black balls will get reduced by 2, you can do it alternatively by assuming the less number of ball, right? The examiner might ask you that the number of balls are 200 and the number of black balls are 131, and still in that case the answer will still be black ball, right? The idea is to take the less number of ball and just take a guess. For example, if I'm taking 4 white, and let's say 4 white are there and 3 black balls are there, right? So let's say in the first process I'm taking 2 white ball out. If 2 white ball are taken, right, both are of same color, so I'll replace it 1 white. So finally I'll have the reduction of 1 ball. So finally I have 3 white and 3 black. If I'm doing the process again, let's say this time I'm getting 1 white and 1 black. In that case, you'll put back 1 black ball. So you're taking 1 black and you're putting back 1 black. So finally you'll be left with 2 white and 3 black, right? Now let's say whichever step you want to take, you can take it, right? Let's say now I'm taking out 2 black ball, both are of same color. So finally I will be left with 2 black ball, both are of same color, so I'll replace it with 1 white. So finally I'll have 3 white and 1 black. Then again I'm taking 2, right? Let's say this time I'm taking 2 white, so again I'll replace it with 1 white. So finally I'll be having 2 white and 1 black. Now let's say again I'm taking 2 white and replace it with 1 white and 1 black, right? Now if I'm taking 2 balls out of it, obviously they cannot be of same color, one will be white, one will be black. Then I'll replace back 1 black ball, and you see that finally I'll be left with only 1 black ball. That will be the true in every case, whatever the number of white and black balls are there. If the number of black balls are odd, the number of the last ball left in the box will definitely be of black. So every time you're solving a question with a large number and idea is not clicking, you should be taking the less number, right? For example, instead of 20, just assume 4 white. Instead of 13, just assume 3 black, and then do the process, and you will get the idea that finally what will be the answer to this for 4 white and 3 black will be same as for 20 and 13, right? Because I'm taking even number here, I'm taking an odd number here, right? So this is known as simulation method, right? If the calculation is not possible with a large number, you start doing it with a smaller number. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Based on a very beautiful concept. The statement says a pizza delivery boy named Mahesh wanted to give 20 pizzas to the office. He had bags which can carry a maximum of 10 pizzas. There were 10 guards standing at different positions near the office. So each guard would take one pizza from each of the bag. That means the delivery boy carries two bags and there are say 10 pizzas in each bag. The first guard would take one from each bag. That means a total of two. So depending on the number of bags, the guard will be taking the number of pizzas. If you're carrying, let's say, three bags to a particular guard, so guard will be taking one pizza from this bag, one pizza from this bag, one pizza from this bag, so you'll have to give three pizzas to the guard. If you're carrying, let's say, five bags, then the guard will be taking one from this bag, one from this bag, one from this, one from this, one from this. In this case you'll have to give five pizzas to the delivery boy, to the guard. So if you're carrying seven bags, then to the guard you'll have to give seven bags. What should be the minimum pizzas the delivery boy should carry so that he should be able to deliver 20 pizzas to the office? To solve the question, you should start from the last. Now, last guard, which is a guard number 10. Let's say the guard number 10 is the last guard you are meeting. So the guard number 10, if you are carrying two bags, guard number 10 will be taking two pizzas. After taking two pizzas, you should be left with 20. But then 22 pizzas cannot be carried in two bags. So last guard would not be taking two pizzas. In fact, he will be taking three pizzas because you will be carrying three bags to him. Now, if you're carrying three bags to the last guard, to the guard number 10, after giving three pizzas, you should be left with 20. Because if I'm looking for the minimum number of pizzas that I should carry, I should take the as minimum value as possible. So to the last guard, you should be carrying 23 pizzas. Now to the guard 9, when you're going to the guard 9, you will be giving one pizza from each bag. So after giving 3, you should be left with 23. So before meeting guard 9, you should be having 26 pizzas. Guard number 8, you will be giving 3 pizzas to guard number 8, you will be left with 26. That means before meeting guard number 8, you should be having 29 pizzas. Now when you meet guard number 7, there's a point here that you need to note down. When you're meeting guard number 7, if you are giving 3 pizzas to guard number 7, before meeting guard number 7, you should be carrying 29 plus 3, that means 32. But that's not possible to carry in 3 bags because one bag can carry at most 10 pizzas. So 32 pizzas cannot be carried in 3 bags. So you'll have to carry 4 bags to guard number 7. So if you're carrying 4 bags to guard number 7, you'll have to give 4 pizzas to guard number 7. So after giving 4 pizzas to guard number 7, you will be left with you need to be left with 32 pizzas, 29 pizzas. So before meeting guard 7, you should be having 33, right? Similarly, before meeting guard 6, you should be having 33 plus 4, that means 37 pizzas. Now before meeting guard 5, you should be carrying 37 plus 5, that means 42. Why plus 5? Because to guard 5, you'll not be carrying the pizzas in 4 bags. You'll have to carry it in 5 bags because maximum number of pizzas that a bag can carry is 10. So 10 into 4, more than 40 pizzas will be carried in 5 bags. So to guard number 4, again you will be giving 5 pizzas, so that is 47. To guard number 3, you will be carrying 6 bags because more than 50 pizzas will be carried in 6 bags. So you should be carrying 47 plus 6, that is 53. To guard number 2, you should be carrying 53 plus 6, that means 59. And when you will be meeting guard 1, you will be carrying more than 60 pizzas. More than 60 pizzas will be carried in 7 bags. So you will be giving 7 pizzas to guard number 1. So finally, before meeting guard number 1, you should be carrying 66 pizzas. So this is the minimum number of pizzas that delivery boy should be carrying so that he can finally deliver 20 pizzas to the office. It's a very beautiful puzzle. So all you have to do is you first in the last you have to subtract 3 and carry 20, and then after a period of time, right before meeting guard 6, before meeting guard 7, you will be adding 4 to the value, and then before meeting guard 5 you'll be adding 5, before meeting guard 3 you'll be adding 6, and then finally before meeting guard 1 you'll be adding 7. So total number of pieces will be 66. A very beautiful concept, completely dependent on your understanding on the language of this puzzle. It's known as a quantitative reasoning puzzle. I hope this helped you in understanding this beautiful concept. A very beautiful puzzle. It says there are 1,000 wine bottle. One of the bottle contains the poison wine. A rat dies after 1 hour of drinking the poison wine. How many minimum rats are needed to figure out which bottle contains the poison in R? 2 points that you should be observing while reading the statement is that a rat dies after 1 hour of drinking the poison wine, and you have only 1 hour to figure out of 1,000 wine bottle which bottle is containing the poison. So on out of 1,000, only one wine bottle contain the poison, and we are supposed to figure out which bottle number is that with minimum number of rats. So we are supposed to minimize the number of rats. Now you see that it's not possible to do the experiment with 1,000 wine bottles. So just to understand this whole concept or the logic behind the question, let's try to solve the set with less number of bottles. Let's take two bottles. Let's say if I have two bottles, then tell me how many minimum number of rats are required to tell which bottle contain the poison. See guys, out of two bottle, if I have only one rat, now let's say I have rat one, and if I say that out of these two bottle, one bottle is definitely containing the poison wine. So now, if rat one is taking the wine from bottle one and not taking the wine from bottle two, let's say, now there are two outcomes. After consuming the wine from the bottle, rat one will either die or rat one will not die. If the rat does not die, that means bottle number one does not contain the poison. So if bottle number one does not contain the poison, that means bottle number two contain the poison. Let's say the rat die. In that case, bottle one contain the poison, bottle two does not contain the poison. So depending upon the outcome of the rat, whether rat die or not die, I'll be able to tell which bottle out of B1 and B2 contain the poison. So with one rat out of two bottles, right? If out of two bottle I'm supposed to tell which bottle contain the poison, I will need only one rat to figure it out. And the solution or the logic depends on whether rat 1 is consuming the wine from bottle 1 or from the bottle 2. So to make this whole logic, I will represent, if rat is consuming the wine from a bottle, I'll represented it by 1 instead of by tick mark. I'll represent it as 1. If the rat is not consuming the wine from a bottle, I'll represent it as a 0 to make the all possible combination. So 1 means rat is consuming the wine from the bottle, and 0 means rat is not consuming the wine from the bottle. Now let's take the second case. If I have, so with one rat, I'll be able to tell out of two bottles which bottle contain the poison wine. Now you see that if I have two rats, rat number 1 or rat number 2, so you can say that I can make four possible cases. With two rat, I can make four possible cases. That let's say both of the rats are not consuming the wine from bottle number 1. Let's say from bottle 1, both of the rats are not consuming the wine. From bottle number 2, rat number 1 is not consuming, rat number 2 is consuming. From bottle number 3, rat 1 is consuming, but rat 2 is not consuming. Bottle number 4, rat 1 is consuming as well as rat 2 is consuming. These are the only four possibilities I will be able to make with two rats. Now, depending upon the outcome, which rat is dying, I will be able to tell which bottle contain the poison wine. How? Let's say there can be an outcome. See that I have made the four possible cases. One is a case that from bottle 1, neither rat 1, neither rat 2 is consuming. 0 means rat is not consuming the wine from that particular bottle. From bottle number 2, rat 1 is not consuming, but rat 2 is consuming. From bottle number 3, Rat 1 is consuming, but rat number 2 is not consuming. From bottle 4, rat 1 as well as rat 2 both are consuming. That means now, out depending on the outcomes, what can be the possible outcomes? The first possible outcome is both rat died. Both rat died. So if both rat die, that means the poison bottle is bottle number 4. Why? Because there is only one case, right? Because from the bottle number 4, both rat are consuming. So if both rat are dying, that means bottle number 4 is poison. Second possible case is rat 2 die, right? Rat 2 dies. If rat 2 dies, that means bottle number 2 is consuming, because rat number 2 is consuming. Rat 2 dies and rat 1 survive. That means because rat number 2, only rat number 2 dies means rat 2 is consuming the wine from bottle number 2, and rat 1 is not consuming the wine from bottle number 2. In that case, bottle number 2 is poison. The third possible case is rat 1 die. Rat 1 dies. Rat 1 dies, that means rat 2 does not die. If rat 1 dies and rat 2 does not die, that means bottle 3 is poison, because in bottle 3 rat 1 is consuming and rat 2 is not consuming. Fourth is a case none of the rat die. None of the rat die means none of the rat die. None of the rat die. That means bottle number 4 is not consuming, is poisoned, because both rat are consuming wine from the bottle number 4. Bottle number 3 is not poisoned because none of the rat die. That means bottle number 3 is not poisoned because rat 1 is consuming the wine from bottle number 3. Bottle number 2 is also not poisoned because rat number 2 is consuming the wine from bottle number 2. The only possible case, right, that will tell me which particular bottle is poison. None of the rat die means bottle number 1 is poison. So you see that with 2 rats, I'll be able to tell out of 4 bottle which bottle will be containing the poison wine. Now understand this whole logic. With one rat, I was able to tell out of 2 bottle, 2 raised to power 1. With 2 rat, I was able to tell out of 2 power 2, that means 4 bottle. The reason is with 2 rat, you can, if you have a basic idea of the base system, with 2 rat, right, you can make with 2 rat the maximum possible number that you can make with the binary digits is 1 into 1. And if I convert it into a decimal system, it will become 1 raised to power 2 power 1 plus 1 multiplied by 2 power 0. With two rat, right, you see that this is the maximum possible number that you can consume, that you can make. And what is that number? 3. And 0 to 3 we have 4 digit, and these number of digits tell me, these 4 digit tells me the number of bottles out of which you can tell. So this whole concept is based on a binary system, right? If you want to convert a binary number into a decimal number, binary number means only 2 digits, 0 and 1. 0 and 1. Here 0 means wine is consumed, 1 means wine is not consumed. So if I have 3 rat, the maximum possible, right? The 3 rat means the maximum possible case would be the maximum number that I can make with 3 rat would be 1, 1 and 1. In decimal system, this number is 1 raised to power 2 power 2 plus 1 into 2 power 1 plus 1 into 2 power 0, which is equal to 7. From 0 to 7, you see that total 8 digits are there. So with 3 rat, I will be able to tell out of 8 bottles, 2 power 3. Or you can straight away understand it. 1 rat means 2 power 1. That means out of 2 bottle, you can tell which bottle contain the poison. If you have 2 rat, you can tell 2 out of 2 power 2. That means out of 4 bottle, you can tell which bottle contain the poison. With 3 rat, 2 power 3, you can tell out of 8 bottle which bottle contain the poison. So if I have 4 rat, I'll be able to tell 2 power 4. That means out of 16 bottle, which bottle contain the poison. If there are 5 rat, I'll be able to tell 2 power 5. That means out of 24 bottle, which bottle contain the poison. So out of 1000, how many rats I'll require? Just try to find out which value of 2 power n is giving me a number which is just greater than 1000, and that you will see is at n is equal to 10. So at 2 power 10, right, by with 10 rats, I'll be able to tell out of 1024 bottle which bottle contain the poison wine. So for out of 1000 bottle, the minimum number of rats that will be required will be 10, and that's the answer of the question. This is based on a very, very beautiful concept. I hope you could understand this whole concept, right? A little bit knowledge of base system is required, the binary base system is required. Even if you do not know that concept, I hope this matrix method would have made clear this whole concept, that how can you tell which particular bottle contain the poison, right, depends upon the number of rats. What is the relationship between the number of bottles and the number of rats? Thank you so much for watching this video.